What is happening, investors? Here we have Steve Schrader, Workhorse Cfo, on the channel once more to answer all of your guys' questions. Steve, we have to stop meeting like this, but thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming back onto the channel.
Happy to do it, Jack.
To do it. So, Workhorse has been doing fantastic things as of late, over the last month or so in particular. And there's a few things I really want to speak about today. Now, the first one is, Steve, I'd just like to hear your thoughts on Biden saying that the entire federal fleet will be replaced with electric vehicles, specifically American electric vehicles. And I know we can't speak about the USPS contract, even though that's what the entire comment section is going to be asking us about. But I'd just like to get your thoughts on his statements and what it could potentially mean for Workhorse going forwards.
Yeah, I think the president's announcement was huge for several reasons, right? It's one, supportive of the EV market. It's two, all American, like you said, all American product buy. And I think he also said a lot about small businesses and purchasing, whether it be parts or final products from small businesses too. So I think that's huge. I think it's meaningful that he did this his fifth day into his presidency, right? Yeah. He did it quickly. He didn't really wait. And so I think that putting a move on that is very quick too. I think it's also meaningful that when you think about it, when the government gets behind things, things happen.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's the government actually is maybe somewhat behind the commercial market. As you well know, customers are already demanding these products, right? Investors are already looking at companies that are making these products.
Yeah.
So I think everybody sees that EVs are kind of the wave of the future going forward. And they see that customers see the savings opportunities. And I think what probably is the only thing that has been missing to some extent is that now you got the government behind it from a standpoint of environmental, and just savings opportunities going forward. So yeah, having the government push this and the president come out, like I said, 5 days after his inauguration is huge.
It was nice and quick. And as you just said, I think that's exactly what we wanted to see. I mean, we spoke a few times now and you've made it very evident that a lot of the people who actually want to buy these trucks, I think every fleet manager in the country at this stage is now heavily contemplating EV more so than traditional ICE vehicles from a savings point of view. And I think the government, to an extent, were a little bit behind. So they're seeing something like this come from the president himself has to be a huge catalyst. Pretty much everybody involved, especially the all-American owned ones, which we know you guys stand very heavily for. So that's awesome. That's your thoughts on that. Obviously, it's a very good thing.
Yes, cool. It's a very good thing. Like you said, the customers are already out there demanding it, and it's, if anything, the EV market has to start producing, right? But you're getting a lot of new entrants into it and investors in investing money into it. So the demand's already there. It's the supply that will try to keep up and go forward. But it's certainly the wave of the future. And whether, in addition to not only the federal government, the state governments have been pushing this as well, whether it be California, New York with voucher programs, or New York supporting an infrastructure program. And I think along with the federal government, I think Pete Buttigieg, his transportation secretary nominee, also talked about putting, I think, dollars into the charging stations and stuff nationwide too. So those are all good things to hear from the federal government because making them supportive of EVs will certainly make things happen faster than without it.
That's what we need, ultimately. That's awesome. So I suppose continue on that topic. I'd like to chat a little bit about the recent order from Pride Group of the 6,300 vehicle orders and where the total backlog is now. Because I know it's grown very, over the last few months in particular, it's exponentially grown. And now this 6,300 vehicle order, I think that was something that investors really like to see with that. Especially we've spoken about Hitachi in the past, and it was all kind of leading to things like this happening, actual sizable orders coming in. And we initially thought the 500 vehicle order from Pritchard was very substantial, and it still is. Now we see a 6,300 one in. So I'd just like to get your thoughts on the current backlog you have, and if we could get some sort of an update in regards to, what action we've been taking in regards to getting the production levels up to where they need to be going into next quarter, or I suppose the quarter that we're in now.
So the backlog is of 8,000 vehicles, and 1,700 or so, I guess you would say, was before the Pride order, and which is probably Pritchard, UPS, DHL, some smaller companies. And then the Pride order, just to give you a little bit more flavor, they will start getting, I think it's maybe 20 a month starting in mid this year. but really their order kicks in then next year, about 600 in 2022, 600 again in 2023, and then 5,000 in the years following that, the 3 years following that. So that's where it really cranks up. And, part of that is getting our production up to speed. So, getting through our backlog so we can actually make trucks for them.
Yep.
And two, they at the same time, like everybody else, needs to get infrastructure in place too, and financing's in place. So it helps. I think it's helpful on both sides to kind of have that order like it is. For production, our goal, our milestone still is to try to have, try to get to 5 a day sometime in March by the end of the first quarter. Okay. And then 10 a day sometime by the end of the second quarter. So those are our milestones, and hopefully we will hit those. But that's, again, if we hit those, then we should be on target for kind of our 1,800 for this year, and then go from there.
Fantastic. So everything still as stands from the last time we spoke, from the last updates we had. We're still aiming for that 5 a day by the end of this quarter.
Still the same milestones. We still have both Belcan and Hitachi, helping us out, giving us some insight. Not only to kind of get to these levels, but then eventually, like we mentioned, Hitachi kind of getting us to a much higher level 2 or 3 years down the road.
Fantastic. Absolutely perfect. That's what we love to hear. I always have to ask this just because it's really interesting to me and enough people don't speak about it. Is there any sort of updates in regards to the Horsefly drone, or when we could potentially be seeing even an update from them?
So they're still going through the FAA process. So they've been applied. They've talked to the FAA. They're going through what they need to do from that standpoint. Also, we're talking to commercial customers that have an interest in this Horsefly. We haven't named who they are yet. It was exciting to kind of see the one video. I hope you saw that was at the CES.
Yes.
That Verizon put out there, and those were obviously Workhorse products.
Yeah.
And so no updates other than we're still talking to commercial customers that eventually would want to use a drone for commercial purpose down the road, but you can't do anything yet really in any meaningful way until you get that FAA certification first. Yeah. So that's still probably 18 months away. So, but we're going through the process with them.
Okay, no, that's cool. It was just exactly that video that you brought up. I know as soon as a lot of people saw that, there was a lot of buzz around these drones again. So I said, that's fantastic. And I suppose the last time we spoke, we had to speak about what was going on with COVID and how it affected everything that was going on in the factory. And it was just as you guys had hired a lot of new employees. So would there be any chance you could shine some light on how everybody's settling in, how everybody's getting in on their new roles? And I suppose, is COVID essentially out of the workplace at this stage?
Yeah, so I would say the COVID virus hit the company probably late October, and we had at one point 30 to 40% of our production crew out, all the way through early December. So it cost us basically 5 weeks. And not only that, we couldn't have Hitachi and or Belcan in to help us out, because you really can't expose more people to that. So, it really kind of killed the fourth quarter. We'll get a handful out again, kind of like very similar to the third quarter. But again, we based on that, we got to put our energies then to try to get, Unit City all ready to go and try to get to the, eventually 5 a day by the end of this first quarter. But, production's hard. Even with these companies involved with us, you're going from zero to kind of putting a whole bunch out at per day. And so that's something that is our goal for 2021. It's the major goal, is getting production out. So, and it's not an easy task. So we don't try to make light of it in any way. And, but that's our goal. But, I think from my COVID standpoint, at least right now, I'm not aware of anything. I had a virus. I was out for 4 or 5 days, never had COVID. But it just shows kind of how it is, and I'm not, I'm not meaningful for production, so they can spare me. But
you still need your CFO, Steve. You need the CFO. You can't go anywhere else.
Have all your production people out. That's just a killer.
Yeah. Well, I think at this stage everybody understands that and appreciates that. What happened, it just so happened to get hit tough. As long as everybody's getting back healthy now, and as we said months ago, just focusing on Q1, which seems to be exactly what's still happening. So that's what we love to hear.
Right.
So again, last time we spoke, one other thing that happened in the last quarter was in regards to the battery supplier and the issues that fell through there. We spoke about the fact that you're going to be working with a few now. Would there be any updates on how those relationships have developed?
Yeah, we have a battery supplier in. We've been testing the battery. We're looking at probably an order sometime this year with them as well. Certainly talking to the current battery supplier as well, making sure that we can satisfy the whole demand we have for volume and batteries. But I think we had indicated and told you that, that we will probably try to have multiple battery suppliers, and certainly two, at least at the start of this year and going forward. And especially with the volume we eventually think we will have, you're going to need multiple battery suppliers anyway. So it's going well. The new company, like I said, has already been in. We've been testing their batteries, so it's going well.
Fantastic. Exactly what we need to hear. It's all about the plan. It's all about the plan, Steve. It's all falling together. And I think market sentiment has really been in the favor of these EVs as of late, especially anything that's American owned. People are absolutely loving. And Workhorse, I think we're all aware, just recently made all-time highs again. So that shows that the people are still behind you and still have a lot of belief in what's going on. So that's perfect. And
I think so. I think EVs, I think I'd read something recently with Biden's announcements. I think I'd read that EVs are only about 3 or 4% of the market right now, which I guess I thought was even more, just because we're in the sector, and you just know the interest and excitement from customers. Yeah. But again, with the president pushing that, it just it's going to move by itself commercially, but getting the government behind the EV industry is huge.
Yeah. I think when you do go out there and look at some of the CAGR rates going through to 2030, and that was before we had somebody like Biden come out and say the things he has, we can even more likely expect even faster growth, which is what we want, especially on a federal level, the government level.
Exactly.
And then I suppose the last question I really have, that's most what I wanted to cover, was just one thing that again always gets people excited is the refrigeration vehicles. And I know a lot of people that I speak to would be upset if I didn't ask about this. Is there much time being spent on them as of right now, or is this still something that's with everything that's going on in the world has to be pushed to the side temporarily?
So there is some time being spent on it, so it's in the engineering area right now, so engineering is also focused on last minute fine tuning of the C1000 and getting it done in Union City, make sure everything's all set to go and assembly is easy for them. But at the same time, they are doing it. And we also use some third parties are looking at both refrigeration and a class 2 vehicle. So a class 2 vehicle, just to give you some perspective, would be very similar, I guess you could say, like the Mercedes Sprinter and the Ford Transit and Ram ProMaster. And because that market, when you think about it, is huge. It's 300,000 plus replacements per year, and that was before the pandemic. Okay. And I think we don't even need a huge market share portion of that, but just to get some of that, and even though the C series right now is going well, that market's probably more 50 or 60,000 a year, and it's spread all over the United States, which is why we use Hitachi and Ryder and everybody to kind of, and dealerships to kind of find customers for that. The other market's so much bigger, and even if you got 5% or 10% of that market, that's a huge business opportunity. So that is also in store too. So probably refrigeration and class 2 will be going through engineering this year. Okay. But hopefully, maybe we can introduce something next year on those.
Fantastic. I think that's something people are going to need to keep in mind, is obviously we spend a lot of time looking at the C series right now, but we need to remember those class 2 opens up to a whole new market. Refrigeration does the same, and the Horsefly drone ultimately as well. All of those are more likely to come at some stage next year. So a lot coming up in the pipeline.
Well, it's all good. And, if we are successful with the production, then the question from you and others would be, well, what's next? Right? Yeah. So we're trying to think ahead about what's next and be mindful of that and get those going.
That's fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that, Steve. I really, really do appreciate you taking the time out of your day. I'm sure you're very busy, and I hope you're feeling very well after whenever you got the virus, Steve. I'm surprised to hear that.
Well enough to talk to you, Jack.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Thank you so much. Well, I'm glad you're good anyway. But thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks, Jack. Take care.
Take care.